Let's take it back to the year 2003. Jack Sparrow and the Pirates of the Caribbean hit theaters worldwide. The first Call of Duty is released for the very first time, and all of us had a crush on
Stacey's mom has got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so.
Meanwhile, on the hardwood, the 02-03 NBA season was in the midst of a seismic transition. As one legend would bid farewell to the game he helped revolutionize, another legend who hadn't even played an NBA game was already beginning to write his legacy. As one dynasty was teetering on the edge of collapse, another was quietly forming to seize its place in history. Revenge, redemption, heartbreak, victory. This season had it all. You're going to want to stay tuned for this episode in the NBA in the year 2003, a year in review. As the 02-03 season dawned, a single question whispered through the halls of the game, flickering in every huddle, every headline, every barbershop debate. Could the Lakers truly claim a fourth straight NBA championship? That would be truly remarkable, historic, and flat out unheard of. Their quest to rewrite what was possible in the modern NBA got underway as the season kicked off. However, as reality set in to start the season, the three-time defending champion Los Angeles Lakers unfortunately appeared to be nearing the end of their reign. Shaq was injured for the majority of the regular season, and although Kobe was cementing himself as one of, if not the best player in the league, averaging 30 points per game and playing all 82 games, the Lakers' time at the top seemed dangerously numbered, and many teams in the Western Conference took note and looked to take full advantage. At the start of the season, everyone's choice to win it all was the Sacramento Kings. Coming off the most controversial Western Conference Finals matchup in recent memory against the Lakers last season, Sacramento was hungrier and ultra motivated to win it all after being so close the season prior. Unfortunately for Sacramento, they were never able to catch any sort of meaningful rhythm in the regular season, as significant injuries would sideline point guard Mike Bibby, who was their underrated superstar in the making, and forward Chris Webber, their multi-talented, multi-dimensional power forward, for big portions of the regular season. Sacramento in 2003 is a reminder that your roster can be as deep and as talented as any team in the NBA, but you still need a bit of luck to go all the way. Despite all of this, Sacramento still achieved the second best record in the Western Conference, posting an impressive 59 wins. But as you can imagine, there were many other teams out west who were hitting their stride at the perfect time. One of these teams was the Dallas Mavericks, who actually started the regular season winning their first 14 games. This Mavericks team was deep, featuring a big three of their own in Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, and Michael Finley. Nowitzki, the fifth-year forward out of Germany, led the charge in Dallas, averaging 25 points and 10 rebounds this season. Dirk's true impact, though, came in how he was revolutionizing the power forward position, which had often been associated with rugged inside play from players like Tim Duncan, Karl Malone, and Charles Barkley. Dirk made it okay for a 7-footer to step outside and be a threat from three-point range, and this year, he did so in dominant fashion, earning MVP consideration and making his second straight All-Star game. These Dallas Mavericks won 60 games this year, the first time this franchise has surpassed the 60 wins mark, truly showcasing just how special this Mavericks team was. The other team that would win 60 games this season was the San Antonio Spurs. The heartbeat and driving force of the franchise, Tim Duncan, was putting together another MVP campaign, averaging 23 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And he was doing so in typical Tim Duncan fashion. Never too flashy, never stealing media headlines, never riveting you with any spectacular dunk, block, or drives at the rim. Night in and night out, he just went to work and was a steady and consistent presence, both in the low post and in the locker room. As this year's All-Star Weekend approached, Kobe Bryant was the leading vote-getter to start in the All-Star game, and he deserved it. As great as Kobe had been the last 3 years, he took his game to a whole new level in 2003. His entire repertoire was on full display, firmly establishing himself as an all-time great. Many debate which Kobe year was his apex, and 2003 is at the top of that list. One of the more mind-boggling achievements from this year is he would go on to score 40 or more points in 9 straight games. 40 points! Even in today's NBA game, that is insane. So back in 2003, this was truly unbelievable. Following Kobe was Orlando's Tracy McGrady, who without question was enjoying his most dominant season ever, leading the league in scoring at 32 points, while also averaging 7 rebounds and 6 assists. Following T-Mac was Vince Carter, who was injury-riddled for most of this year, but his high-flying aerial assault was still captivating fans and crowds alike, establishing himself as still one of the most popular players in the NBA. By 2003, and for a couple of years up until this point, the NBA was in the golden age of generational power forwards that would come to define the decade. Tim Duncan was probably for a couple of years now the undisputed best power forward at the time. Next up, you would probably go with Kevin Garnett of the Minnesota Timberwolves over Dirk Nowitzki, because as revolutionary to the position as Nowitzki was, KG was as versatile a player that this game has ever seen. There was literally nothing on the court he couldn't do, and he played with a fire and passion that was unmatched at the time. After those three, Jermaine O'Neal, Chris Webber, and Rasheed Wallace were probably the next tier up, in that order also, but all three of these forwards were ultra talented in their own right. O'Neal was leading a young and scrappy Indiana team with a talented post game and phenomenal shot blocking abilities. Chris Webber was probably the best passer at this position, along with being a force on the block as well. And Rasheed Wallace was probably second to only Duncan as the most talented offensive player on the block at the time. Even after D6, you had power forwards like a young Pau Gasol in Memphis and Elton Brand with the LA Clippers, who were becoming instant 20 points, 10 rebounds, double-double machines. And you can't forget the older but still very effective Karl Malone from Utah, who was still averaging 20 points and played all but one game in the regular season. In no other time did the league see a better group of power forwards, truly a monumental era for this position. In a surprising turn of events for this year's All-Star game, rookie Yao Ming of the Houston Rockets was the fourth leading vote getter because the league opened up All-Star balloting globally, which included the approximately 1 billion people in Yao's homeland of China. This meant that Yao would be the starting center for the West, catapulting him over Shaq, who had been the mainstay Western Conference starting center for years. And up until this point, and within other spheres of his life, Shaq was not above pettiness. And probably as a joke initially, but baked in with some sprinkle of realism, Shaq went in publicly on Yao, calling him names, questioning his hype, and kind of just bullying him, to be honest. Whether it was because of the All-Star starting snub, or whether Yao was flashing signs of dominance in his rookie year at center, or whether Yao just towered over Shaq standing 7'5", Shaq poked and prodded Yao from afar. Which is why one of the most highly anticipated regular season matchups was LA's visit to Houston in January 2003. Everyone was hyped for Shaq vs. Yao Volume 1, including hundreds of millions of additional eyeballs in China. The opening moments of the game saw Yao block Shaq's first 3 shots, and on the other end, Yao would hit his first 3 shots. The crowd was going crazy, and it looked like Yao was officially the best big man in the game today. But at the end of the day, order will be restored as Yao tallied a respectable 10 points and 10 rebounds to Shaq's dominant 31 points and 13 rebounds. Houston did end up winning though on the heels of a 44-point barrage from Steve Francis, an explosive and very underrated point guard from the early 2000s who is forgotten in many conversations today. As explosive a lead guard as there ever was, Stevie Franchise would also make his first All-Star appearance in 2003. As April approached, many teams were excited to get the playoffs started to avenge playoff hardship from a year prior. One team was the Dallas Mavericks, who got bounced out of the playoffs by Sacramento in 2002. As Dallas was preparing for their second round matchup against Sacramento in this year's round 2, Dallas was looking for some revenge. Both these teams featured high-octane offenses with deep rosters, but Dallas was just objectively a bit deeper. Dirk was their revolutionary power forward. Steve Nash was an elite point guard able to score with the best of them and set up his teammates brilliantly. Veteran Michael Finley, whose combination of shooting, defense, and rebounding was a plus at shooting guard. And Nick Van Exel was an underrated spark off the bench, scoring 40 points in Game 2 and 36 in Game 3. Unfortunately for Sacramento, Chris Webber suffered a season-ending knee injury early in the series, and although Sacramento did force this series all the way to a Game 7, Dallas's offense was just too much for Sacramento to handle. On the other side of the Western Conference bracket, the Lakers and Spurs met in the second round. Remember, it was these Lakers who swept the Spurs in 2001 and beat them in 5 games in 2002, so the Spurs too were looking to avenge some prior postseason trauma. This series featured arguably the 3 best players in the league in Shaq, Kobe, and Duncan. But at the end of the day, Duncan played like the best player out of the 3. Shaq was still a lot to handle inside, but was not as dominant as he had been. Kobe was, at this point, the most talented guard in the league, but the Spurs defense was able to neutralize his brilliance. and Duncan was proving to the world that although Shaq and Kobe may have been the best singular talents at the time, Duncan was a better leader, elevating the play of those like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, and was a better talent when it mattered the most in these playoffs and in this series in particular. When the dust settled, San Antonio put an end to the Lakers dynasty by eliminating them in 6 games. The Lakers, who had looked invincible in the 3 years prior leading to the 2003 season, all of a sudden looked very human and very flawed. The end of the Lakers dynasty paved the way for a newer, albeit quieter and steadier one in San Antonio. But there is no dynasty without a championship, and San Antonio still had a lot of ground to cover. The Western Conference Finals was a Texas showdown between the San Antonio Spurs and the Dallas Mavericks, and although San Antonio was favored, it seemed Dallas was hitting their stride at the perfect time to complete the upset. Dallas actually went on to steal Game 1, with Dirk Nowitzki matching Tim Duncan's offensive output. However, after this initial upset, San Antonio proved their dominance and won the next 3 games. And in the final closeout Game 6, Steve Kerr came out of nowhere to hit 4 threes in the second half to put the game away. Over in the Eastern Conference, the Nets blazed through the playoffs, having only lost 2 games in the entire playoffs up until this point, and entering the NBA Finals on a 10-game winning streak. As New Jersey and San Antonio faced off in these finals, Duncans will put together one of the most dominant finals performances in NBA history, averaging 24 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 blocks. And to top it off, in the series-clinching Game 6, Tim Duncan put up a near quadruple double with 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 blocks. This performance in Game 6 and for the series in general was on the level of Shaq's 2000 Finals performance against Indiana, a feat that no one thought any player in the modern NBA could come close to accomplishing, and this really cemented Duncan as truly one of the greatest players in NBA history. Ultimately, San Antonio emerged victorious to win their second championship in 5 years. 2003 was the ultimate redemption story for San Antonio. After several playoff disappointments during the Lakers' dynasty from 2000 to 2002, the Spurs finally got their revenge against the Lakers, and Tim Duncan was finally getting the credit he deserved. His first championship in 1999 was seen as a fluke because it was during a shortened NBA lockout season, and although 2002 was an MVP year for Duncan, he still came up short in the playoffs. Overlooked no more, finally. 2003 established Tim Duncan as the best player in the league and one of the best players ever. And looking ahead to future years, we all know that he wouldn't be done collecting rings in this decade. With that being said, is Duncan the best player of this decade? Or is it Kobe? Or is it Shaq? Or is it someone else?